What is the added value of the TSQL features? Actually, we have to recognize what are the features first of all. Then after, does the TSQL have features or not, and so on. The TSQL actually it is a list of transactions to do to carry on queries, SQL queries mainly. So the features they are related to the transactions. We talk about the transactions features. We may talk about some of the isolation related features, or whatever. The level of isolation, yeah, absolutely. We talk about maybe atomicity or consistency or things like that. But in all cases, the features they are the responsible characteristics to guarantee or to give the assurance that the transaction would be fulfilled successfully. Simple. So the features they have to. Well, since we are talking about the TSQL as an added value for security concerns to protect against interferences and injections and let's say data alteration and things like that, to secure the transactions. So characteristics that they do enhance the security of the transactions, they are considered to be features in details. The added value is a security concern to guarantee to play the role of the information assurance, to demonstrate the information assurance on top of the submitted queries or the retrieved, let's say, results or solutions or response. Are you able to hear me, please? Is my voice reaching you?
Yes.
Yes, great. So continue. Sorry for the
Yes.
it's a technical issue. Yeah, great. I'm already sharing again. Okay, we start from the structure. Discussing the structure of the CLR stored procedure, and then after we continue from here. Remember that the stored procedure is the CLR stored procedure. It's a utility that the SQL Server enhances, and it is to be utilized for further securing and let's say guaranteeing the secure transactions to be in action. The CLR actually they enhance the interaction with the external environment. They may help in the generation and the use of the assemblies from the environment. The environment here, we mean by the environment the operating system where the software is residing, and not only that, the assemblies functionalities, the functions inside of the types defined by the assemblies, they can be utilized by the CLR. This is good. In addition to that, the content of the assembly, the generated assemblies, they can be actually customized in the sense of the content of an assembly once generated by CLR. It can be only a content of an entity or an object from the database. If we are talking about an entity, so we talk about customization of the entity architecture, something like that actually. But more than that, we cannot have any other concerns. We're going to extract the content of an entity table or a partial portion A partial portion means we need, for example, only a column or a field, something like that. So we can customize. We or developers can customize the outcome and the content of an assembly. Great. This is in theory part. This is in theory. This is what concerns the theory of the behavior and the structure of the CLR in relationship with the environment and the assembly generally. And they are communicated, and they are successful to communicate actually because of the .NET. Remember, they are successful to communicate due to the .NET. What is the .NET? It's the framework that the Microsoft enhances to help all the Microsoft products operate all together. Okay, the structure of let's just have the technical description. The technical description now of a CLR, SQL CLR stored procedure, and you have to recognize the CLR. Actually, it is a sort of a program to have, let's say, a target to do. In our case, in our example here, we are going to extract a list of profiles or a list of data related to people. Here, select stuff from an object. This is the main goal. We are willing to secure this transaction, this query. We are willing to secure this query. See the story how it is going on in order to build a secure framework for this one query. It's one query, this one. This query actually, first of all, it is inside a procedure. Has to be contacts quick. User defined name. This is the user defined name. It's a procedure. How I knew it's a procedure? Because it has a parenthesis, the indicator of a procedure, no, and it has a start and end. It has limits, it has borders, more or less. And this procedure, this same procedure itself, is inside a class. Means class is this is actually the object-oriented programming, no more, no less. And we are not concerned about the structure of the class because we need only the class as an object later on to access the object inside in our question, which is in our concern, sorry, which is the this procedure. See what I'm using? I'm using the word procedure, not the stored procedure. Okay, now just small conclusions, small summary. The query, the procedure, the class, the procs, SP contacts quick, the query. Very simple. See the context here, the subdivision. We have three groups. Not groups, but points, approaches. We have a command to pass. Now we are not this query here, this select stuff from the person, from the object. It is being passed to the server using this SQL context and this execute and send query. Not query, but command. This command actually is from the here the server namespace. It is from the namespace server. This is a procedure also. It's a command, but it is defined here in this namespace. Okay, using this command here, this execute and send. Execute and send. It's easy. It's a predefined method to pass the SQL command from this SQL client, the SQL command from the SQL client, SQL command, within which we are passing this select this query. Simple. Now we have a clear view of this procedure, of this, let's say, program. what we need to do. Okay, through this block here, through this program here, we use the CLR, we use actually the available functionalities from our API, whether it is the SSDT or the SSMS or the Visual Studio, to generate this DLL file, which is the assembly to use later. This file is DLL file, actually DLL file. It would be playing the role of the assembly. I'm going slowly here to make you focus and make you just concentrate on what I'm presenting you, and to give you the chance to ask if you have. I'd like to have questions from you. So this DLL file, it would have the structure and the content of this class. What this class does, what we are willing to do with this class. So it would be later on available in the environment. It's not available in the SQL Server DLL. Here it is available within the environment. Available within the environment. Within the environment. The environment here we talk about the operating system. Yeah. So thus we have a program that does whatever we want. Here now example is to extract only. We generate a DLL file and we just create an assembly to point that DLL file. Create the assembly to point that DLL file. Okay, now we have at least an environment ready to be utilized. This DLL file to be called later on to be executed, full stop. We are going to call this DLL file to get executed. Means to whenever we need it, whenever it is needed inside the program, it would be called to bring the outcome. Let's see the other portion. Right here. The procedure that we are going to create here, it would be given actually a user-defined name. And this user-defined name, whatever, later on be utilized to execute. Okay. What have this procedure in its body? It is just a reference to what? To the procedure which is available inside the assembly. What is the assembly? It is the DLL file. Here it is. The DLL file holds the class name, dot, holds the procedure name, dot. So we are creating a procedure that refers as external, refers to the assembly to use, or to the assembly, yes, to execute or to get the outcome of the content, whatever, to execute and get the intended action. This is a procedure that has been created. It has a user-defined, it has a name. And to get the outcome now, to finalize this execution in this program, we have to execute how? Either by using the exec keyword or simply just calling the name of the procedure, which is this one. This one. This name here, it is not this name here. It is not this name here. It is this name here. Any questions here, please, at this level? I'm giving you 5 or 10 minutes actually explaining only this program, so I need questions, please. If it is clear, that's perfect. Are you with me? Huda, are you here? Okay, let's continue. So let's continue. Okay, we are required to do something like what we were explaining, to create stored procedure to display the content of DB entity, whatever. It is up to you to do. But here actually here's the solution. Simple. Regardless, so let's talk theory also. The server-side data access, the server-side data access. The TSQL did not actually forgot and trespass and neglect the use of the predefined methods, the metadata methods, via which we can retrieve data and we can enhance and enrich the work with the objects inside the database. What does mean? If we need to get any information about any entity or any object inside the database, whether we have to get the properties or we just pass one of the methods that the SQL Server enhances and the TSQL understands, so we can yes, act accordingly. The developers can act accordingly. Here we talk about one of the features that the server can accept. The server here we mean the SQL Server, the DBMS means the backend side, the server side. So it's one of the behaviors which is the access to be allowed by the server side. The SQL CLR stored procedures actually code runs in an instance of the .NET CLR that is hosted by the SQL Server itself. So this is a confirmation that the SQL CLR, they are stored, their procedures, we said that they are stored in the server side, which is the SQL Server itself. Actually, it is not an external process because it is a component from the SQL Server, from the engine. It is not an external process. Yes, it can be called, and it has to be called, and it has to have a relationship with the front end solutions and technologies, whatever, but it is not an external process. But there are other processes that we can consider them as external processes. There are other, let's say, objects, or let's say functionalities or features that we can consider them as external processes. Here we talk about the extended procedures, the extended stored procedures. They are defined in our book also. The extended stored procedures, they are considered to be external processes also. Why? Because of their extensibility. They are not based on one functionality to execute. No, they are based on list of functionalities, and each functionality is in a location across the world. Across the world, remember this word. They are actually separated geographically. They might be in two different computers, which they are near. They might be in two different computers, which they are very far. So in all cases, they are those extended stored procedures. They are on top of segregated processes. So thus they are actually to be considered as external processes. Okay, predefined methods that are actually enhanced by the SQL Server and the .NET, let's say, framework. We may utilize actually different. They're actually clearly given to us, and the most of them here we can see the ones utilized for recalling the data, or for, let's say, describing the metadata that can be utilized to describe the fields in an entity or in an object. The SQL data record is one of the utilities that can be utilized. It's a .NET utility. Yes, it is a .NET. It is a .NET utility that can be utilized actually to create an individual, let's say, record, sort of a record. Yeah. From a returned response. Due to returned response, it can be utilized to generate a record accordingly. What a record? It is a record that has values from a response. A response from where it can be. It is a common sense. It is from a server, from a database server. Simply, SQL data record, it can be utilized to generate a customized record. SQL metadata, it is one of the methodologies. It's one of the predefined methods that can be utilized to generate a description to a field or a list of fields accordingly. Also, every single field can have actually a description. To do so, we can refer to the SQL metadata. Metadata, remember, metadata. The first one is data record. The second one is metadata. Okay. For what it concerns the termination of the, let's say here we describe it up to this level here, we describe the CLR, we describe the use of the CLR, we describe what is the CLR, structure of a CLR, components that they build the CLR, and you can see that the CLR is not one bulk of data, it is a segregation of components, and they are all together operating to terminate the process. Okay, how to deploy this CLR now, the deployment, the context of the deployment actually. The DBMS in question used within a project actually are meant to mirror fully the databases to which the contents will be deployed. This is one of the features that the CLR has to, to benefit from. Means the utilization of the assemblies within the environment, they have to be utilized somehow. Means there have to be actually no restriction from accessing the external environment. The assemblies, they are DLL files. DLL files, they are system-related components. System-related components, they are completely external components to the SQL Server as a DBMS. Yet they have to be accessible anytime and whenever needed. So thus, the SQL Server database, you can read projects and any, let's say, anything standing on the use of the SQL Server, they have to have a copy and to make a mirror of the project in question, in which there is a chance to eliminate any obstacle, if happens, from forbidding the use of the assemblies, and thus we guarantee the deployment. One of the points that here to terminate with is that the procedure, or let's say the class that has the task to do the select or whatever. Let me come back a little bit. Here, we have a class now. We have a class, and we have a process to do, which is a selection or whatever. It's a query to pass to the database management system. Whatever the process is, this process has to be deployed. The class, it has to be deployed. To generate an assembly, it has to be deployed to generate an assembly. And this assembly later on would be utilized here. Path DLL, it has to be generated and utilized later on, for sure. Otherwise, there is a problem. Otherwise, a problematic view. So the content of the program has to be deployed into an assembly in order to finalize the task. Otherwise, it would be there will be a shortage or something like that. Okay, the CLI function, as we said, that they actually when we see the relationship with the assemblies, actually the CLI, they are using they are able to reach and use the functions and the types from within an assembly body. A function is a procedure that returns a value. This is a common sense. On the other hand, actually, it must return a type, and the type is something recognized by the SQL Server, SQL type. In the sense of we have to actually all the types they might be, and they are actually common sense. They are recognized by the SQL Server, but we have to consider in question, and we have to take it in consideration, is that the return type of functions, they have to be recognized by the SQL Server. So the SQL type namespace has to recognize all the returned values of all functions, whether they are user-defined or predefined. Triggers, we said that they actually cause to launch the automation, to cause the automation of the processes, automate launch, automate a task to do, something like that. Create a trigger, we saw that actually in the lab yesterday. It's a common sense, just you create a trigger and you give it a name on an entity, and the entity has to have trigger, it has to have an and, beginning and end, and then between there will be a process. It's not a big deal. Okay, the aggregates here, just one reminder, the aggregates, they are not new to us. Yeah, here it's the definition of the SQL queries, simple. So we may pass aggregates, we may pass, see the example here, we may pass aggregates to a query body within the query. So this is the query. This is the full query here. This is the query. And in the body, we are using aggregates. We are using aggregates. So yes, aggregates, they are the functionalities of the analytical functions that you can use from within a body of a query. We saw that in the chapter number 2, actually, which was, it's not new to us. Yeah, there are types actually that the SQL Server do understands, and there are types that the SQL Server has defined for himself, the SQL Server, the date, the time, the date time, and those types actually the SQL CLI types, they were created to allow multi-value or multi-behavior data types to be stored, actually manipulated also. This is one of the considerations why we are insisting on the use or definition of the types. At this level, actually, we come to an end of this entity. Any questions, please? I'll give you the link right now, and I'll take the attendance. Any questions so far, please?